Hey, what's up, y'all? Coach Ross here. Today I want to talk about embracing the suck. When we come out here to train and we get into the gym, one of the things that we have to do is we have to challenge our current abilities. And the only way to do that is we're going to have to learn how to embrace things that are hard and difficult. And a lot of times we have to learn to embrace the suck, so to speak. And it's a balancing act. We have to learn when to push, when to pull back, when we need to embrace the suck, and when it's something that we need to pull back from. That's going to be one of the keys to our development. It's going to be one of the keys to keeping ourselves healthy along the way in the journey in the pursuit of that strength. And that can be one of the hardest things for us as lifters to learn is what is that discomfort that I need to embrace, and what is that discomfort that I need to be mindful of and pull back from. And so I want to come to you today and share some of my experiences and some of my thoughts from my many years of lifting weights, and hopefully that will help you learn how to balance that out and learn how to figure out which discomfort you need to embrace and push through and which discomfort you need to pull back from. Now, I want to state very clearly here too up front that this is purely from my own experiences. I'm not doctor of physical therapy or doctor of chiropractic or anything like that. So mind you, this is all experience. This isn't from any formal education. My formal education is actually in engineering, so a little bit different. I think first, if we start with a definition of discomfort, it is the absence of comfort or ease, hardship and or even a mild pain. Oh, that's the tricky one. Should I stop? Is this pain going to lead to injury? Is it going to hurt me more? Yes and no. There's both sides of that. It can happen, it can go either way. And again, that's why we're here. We need to learn how to be able to discern that pain to stop and that pain to push through. For example, DOMs can be really painful, especially the first time you've ever done Bulgarian split squats. Holy crap, is there some soreness and pain and discomfort that comes from that? And we can still keep training. We can still push through that discomfort. So one of the things that I like to do for myself that helps guide me through a lot of this stuff is I like to question it through 3 different lenses and 3 different areas. Why, where, and how much. Why? This is one of the core components to understanding if we need to push through that discomfort or not. Why is this discomfort coming up? Why am I experiencing this discomfort right now? And understanding a little bit of that can be really beneficial. Again, the DOMs. Why am I in this pain? Delayed onset muscle soreness. When we know what that is and what it feels like and how we experience it, we know then that we can usually warm up and dissipate some of the intensity of those feelings and continue on with the training, continue on with the session or the next session, whichever it is that we're experiencing the DOMs. A lot of what we do in powerlifting, especially if we're doing some hard rep work, it gets really hard to breathe. Why am I experiencing this discomfort? Because it's hard to breathe. Well, that's probably a really good place that we need to suck it up and push through anyways. When we're pursuing higher loads and bigger barbell loads, it's going to feel heavy. There's going to be inherent discomfort in having a heavily loaded barbell on your back or in your hands. And that is definitely a discomfort that we need to learn to embrace and push through, because I can't count that high. Same thing with the breathing. People like to make a lot of fun of like high rep work and say, oh, I can't count past 5. Now, that's probably creating a limitation. If you're abiding by that, if you're really thinking you can't do sets of 10 or 12 to develop some hypertrophy, develop some work capacity, work on some conditioning, we have to be able to count past 5. So we gotta be able to break free from that limitation. I don't hear it as much as I used to. So that's a good thing. That's probably a sign that the community is making a shift away from that limitation. But I definitely recall lots of times where the joke in powerlifting was, I can't count past 5. So we have to be able to recognize that, and when that limitation pops up and exists and how it can limit our training and push past it. Another one that comes up for this why is because I feel unstable. A lot of times if we're moving through space, there's times when we know we feel stable and in control, and then there's other times where we feel a little bit unstable. And trying to understand like where that lack of stability comes from. Sometimes that lack of stability might be because we're like guarding away from pain, or maybe it's just because we're heavy and we're exerting force on it. There's a bit of instability there. So trying to understand what that instability is can help us make an informed choice. I think about an experience I had a couple years ago dealing with a chronic like naggy hip. And one of the ways that I was experiencing that discomfort, when I would go to deadlift, there was a shaky instability feeling and a click in my hip as I would pass through my knees in a deadlift. I needed to be mindful of that. That was not a positive experience. That was not an instability that was something that I could work around. Where other times it might be a lack of stability because we need to cue things a little bit differently. Thinking about like a bench press, a lot of times people will get unstable at the chest, and we just need to think about having a big chest so we can stabilize that bar position at the chest and come to our chest and stop, get the press command and go. So why is that instability there? How are we experiencing it? And is it a limitation? Is it something that I can correct? Or is it something that I need to kind of be mindful of and take that step back to recover, recuperate, things of that nature? Where is the discomfort? I think a lot of times we make it up. A lot of times it's in our head. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, it's hard. Oh, this is heavy. And the discomfort is actually uncontrolled thought processes. And that can be a massive limitation. That's a whole nother video to get that thought process under control. But we have to understand that when those thoughts are coming up, they're a lie. They are a lie and they're a limitation. They're trying to self-sabotage us or something along those lines. And we need to learn at that point to tell that inner voice, that inner dialogue to shut up and get out of my way. I'm here, I'm gonna lift this weight. Where? What about the muscle belly? We think about DOMs, right? When we've experienced DOMs and what we know that soreness is like, we know that is, you feel it within the muscle belly. It's something that you can warm up and you can push through. It's uncomfortable, it's not pleasant, it's not fun, but it is rewarding when we're able to push through that. So a lot of times for me, I think about when that discomfort is in the muscle belly. That's usually something for me that I can work through, particularly push through. I might need a little bit of extra warm up to get some more blood flow pumping, and that allows me to push through, but I don't have to stop. I can embrace that discomfort and I can embrace that to still continue to get the session in and get that work in. Now, when that discomfort shows up and it's in the joint, that's when I get a lot more cautious and kind of pull back. And there's some times where it's minor enough, it's a little bit of a dull ache or a little bit of maybe a sharp pain at the top of the kneecap or something along those lines. And warming up, it will dissipate and I'll realize, okay, well then I'm able to work through it. But the big thing is when it's in the joint, when it feels and I perceive that discomfort to be in the joint, I'm really gonna be paying very close attention to how I'm able to move through space. If I start to move in a pattern that like is guarding away from trying to avoid that pain, maybe I need to pull back. But if I'm still able to move through space the way that I need to and the way that I want to in terms of the organization of the lift, I might be okay to continue. But that fuels us into the next part of how much. You know, there's a lot of PTs out there that talk about, oh, well, if the pain is a 3 of 10 or less, you can continue. And I agree with that to an extent, but at the same time, we all have different thresholds of pain, especially when we're talking about this idea of learning to embrace the suck. So that can be difficult to navigate in this situation. How intense is that discomfort? Is it really distracting or is it just a slight annoyance? And learning that difference can be beneficial. The way I tend to approach some of that stuff is, again, being mindful of that discomfort level, that pain level in the joint. And if it's actually increasing as I'm doing the exercise, as I'm moving through space, maybe I need to pull back a little bit. Because if that pain is increasing from that exercise, then that is likely a big sign of a risk that is increasing and could put you in a potentially jeopardizing situation, and we don't need that. We can't get stronger if we're in a state of injury and we're in that constant state of setback. But again, we can't just pull back from any little sign of pain. So that's a brief overview of how, where, and why. Now the thing to think about is all three of those components mixed in together. Like all three of those things need to play in with each other at the same time to discern whether we need to embrace that suck, embrace that discomfort, or we need to pull back. Thinking again about the example with my hip. Am I guarding against the pain? Does the pain seem to increase as I'm continuing through the session, or does it stay the same or reduce? Is it in the joint? And like all three of those things were, yes, it's in the joint. Yes, I can't seem to dissipate it through warming up. No, it's not getting better. Okay, I need to pull back and get whatever underlying thing it is addressed so that I can continue forward. Now, if it's only satisfying maybe one of those things of, oh yes, it's uncomfortable because it's really hard for me to breathe right now, but I'm not experiencing any of the pain and discomfort in any joints, then I need to suck it up. Then I need to embrace that suck. And what's really cool about learning to do that, it's a skill that we can learn to cultivate throughout our lifting career. Embracing different levels of that discomfort, embracing different levels of that suck can be really beneficial. And that's how we go about it. It's not something that is intuitive per se, that you're just born knowing it. It's kind of a skill that we have to cultivate along with the skill of moving through space well and moving through space organized. One of the things that I always like to think about too is that if I'm learning this skill here in lifting weights, in the pursuit of powerlifting and strength, it's a skill. And I can use that skill in other places and areas in my life. And now I'm learning all kinds of cool stuff, and I can elevate all kinds of different areas of my life and not just my lifting. Like all things, while we look to find that flow, to embrace the suck and manage and mitigate risk, there is no ever getting rid of it. We're gonna make mistakes along the way. We're gonna push through pain that we should have pulled back from, and we're gonna get banged up sometimes, but we can find our way through that. We can recover, we can go through rehab or restoration, whatever it is that we might need to go through, depending on how far down the road that becomes, but we're gonna make some mistakes along the way. Mistakes are okay. We can't avoid mistakes. We just need to learn from them, and learning from them to help us make good and smart informed choices as best we can when we encounter something of a similar experience in the future. And I'm sure there's a lot more that people can use to do this. That's probably not a video in totality. There's probably a lot of other ways that we can learn to balance this act of when to push through and when to pull back from. So I'd love to hear from you. What do you do? What has your experience been like? And what tools do you use to help you understand, oh, this is something to push through, this is something to pull back from? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you all on the next one.